Bishwajeet, I think we can get the session started. We'll start admitting people as and when they enter. So guys, good afternoon to everybody who's been a part of today's masterclass. So today's masterclass is about deep dive into identity and access management landscape. So our expert today is Mr. Bishwajeet Chakraborty. I have had the pleasure to work with him on a couple of islands, a couple of topics for the AntWak bootcamp. And a quick introduction about himself. He has close to 7 years of relevant experience in the cybersecurity field, and he specializes in identity and access management. He's an Oracle certified professional, and also he has done his partner certification with CyberArk for PIM and PAM, which is Privileged Identity Management and Access Management. In addition to that, he is Microsoft certified for web design, and he has experience across almost all possible IAM tools, including SailPoint, ForgeRock, and Oracle Identity Access Manager. In addition, he's also worked with various clients and integrated environments with millions of user base, and he's received quite a few accolades, including Best Employee, Best Mentor, Spot Awards for Accenture and Infosys Leadership Program. He's been a part of the AntWak experiential program since the last 2 batches, and we are going strong. And there are more batches and future collaborations to come. So without any further delay, I would request you to guys welcome Bishwajeet to today's session, and good afternoon to everybody who's been a part of today's session as well. So without any further delay, Bishwajeet, the stage is all yours. Thank you so much for being there today. So I think you are on mute.
Yeah, thanks for reminding. So very warm good afternoon to all of the present participants who are here. And thank you so much, Kaushik, for a warm welcome and that fantastic introduction of mine. Well, one thing which I would like to add about myself is I love what I do. I mean, you might be finding there are so many people who are not that happy about the technology or the work they are doing in IT industry, but that's something not with me, because I love cybersecurity and the field which I work for. And I believe if somebody takes interest in it, it will get it back, right? So there will be no problem with the opportunities and the scopes over here. So I think, Kaushik, you want me to share my screen for the further?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just a sec. All right. So without further ado, so meanwhile, Kaushik, in between, because it's heavily raining on my side, so if there is some network glitch or if I'm not audible in the middle, right, just let me know. Okay.
Sure.
I'll just rephrase myself. Yep.
Absolutely.
No worries. So let's start with the slide, guys. So again, a very welcome. And the first thing which I must say about you guys is, because you have taken interest and you have shown your interest to learn cybersecurity, one of the cybersecurity part, that's one of the very firm step which you have taken towards your career. And if you are already into cybersecurity, whether it is identity and access management or some other domain, very, very good that you are taking interest in IDAM domain and willing to learn more. Now, so before I get into the cybersecurity and what is IDAM and those part, right, I would like to give you a quick glimpse of why it is required and why this has been one of the most important part of any organization, right? So in a nutshell, what I'd like to say is, we all know that today is, we call it digital era, right? I mean, everything is online, whether it is on cloud or some physical storage, right? So if you go back 10 years, 20 years back, most of the offices, even government, non-government, runs into notebooks and all, right? There will be entries, manual entries and all. And after this revolution of computerized things, everything is coming into online. It's not about only managing the data, it's about security, it's about doing the business. Everything is online, right? Nowadays, everybody is going into online for selling their product. That's what we call e-commerce and all, right? So when we have all of the data on online platform, when I say online platform, is basically there has to be a storage, so whether it's a cloud storage or some physical device, hard disk, right? So when that everything is available on online, there has to be a risk of cyber attacks and phishing, right? So these words are very commonly known, like people normally termed as hacking, right? But hacking is it's a huge term. There are multiple paradigm under hacking. You might be heard about Trojan. You might be heard about phishing, illicit emails, then your social engineering, right? So there are different types of hacking can happen, right? So then there are DDoS attacks for the systems, right? So all this kind of attack can happen to you, any of the organization, and can steal your data. Now you must be, must have heard so many times, right? Like, hackers have hacked this particular website and stole this much of money. Or recently they have done with our some of the government SBI website and some oil and petroleum website as well, right? So they put their own logo, and some people who do it for fun, they call it ethical hacker, because they are doing it ethically. They are not harming anybody. But most of the people who knows how to do that, they doesn't think that way, they harm it, right? So that's what we call it black wave. So that black with the people who have a very mindset hacker, they were actually a very well profound cybersecurity engineers, right? Who turns to be hacker. Like, if hacker is not something of power, it's basically, you know, the knowledge. You have the in-depth knowledge of cybersecurity, how you can reach the system, and then you choose to be a wrong person. So in order to save your data from those attacks, cybersecurity is a must-be, right? When you talk about your own data, suppose some of might think like, okay, if my Gmail account get compromised, I'll create one more one, right? But that's not the point, right? Think about your credentials of your bank account, right? If your bank account get compromised and somebody get access to your Google account, or GPay account, or your, say, bank account, they will transact on behalf of you. This is a huge threat, right? Now it is about the individual level. Now think about any big organization who are managing millions of users and billions of wealth, right? You talk about any big bank, let's say HDFC or ICICI. You talk about any big organizations, right? Indian Railway and all, right? They have PII. PII stands for personally identified information, right? So PII for all of their employees. So if you get that database, you will get to know who are working for your railway, what their salary, what their blood group, if they have any diseases, all this information, which is very, very confidential for a particular person. So organization cannot let that happen, and they cannot afford breaching of their data, right? So for all of the people who are running business online, it's talk about a small MSME businessman or a big billion-dollar companies like Google or Microsoft, right? Everybody has to have security to secure their data, their transactional data, their user base, their confidential data, everything. And in order to do that, we have to have some security measure in place, right? So now, as you know, that how important cybersecurity is and why it is a must need for any organization, right? Now, I would further a little bit go ahead with what is identity and access management. So when we just like talking about hacking means it's not always hacking, right? There are multiple way of hacking it. Similarly, cybersecurity is a huge ocean. There are multiple paradigms inside it, right? When you talk about paradigm, you must heard about network security. Normally, people who reads about cybersecurity during their colleges or engineering classes, they normally go for network security, like routing, switches, dynamic IPs, those stuff, right? CCNA courses, right? So that actually one part, which we call network security, right? Securing the network through which you are accessing your website or secure resources. But that's not all, right? There are other security like physical security. You have to store your cloud database or your physical hard disk in a proper way. Otherwise, it can breach, right? Suppose you have confidential data in your hard disk and that's got stolen. So everybody will get access to that hard disk, right? So you have to store properly. So that's called physical security. Then we have cryptography, where we secure the data in encrypted manner. So there will be private and public key, and using keys only people can decrypt it and make use of it. So even if it got stolen through website or through some hacker, they cannot read it most of the time. That's called cryptography, right? Then we have vulnerability management. We have system vulnerabilities coming in for all of the software, which get mitigated based upon their patches, right? And then there is one more very important and basic part, which is called identity and access management, right? So now we know there are multiple paradigms in cybersecurity. Even there are even more. So let's talk about a little bit of identity and access management. What exactly it is, right? So you might have heard about IDAM. You might have heard about some of the tools, Oracle and SailPoint, those kind of tools. So what exactly that does, right? So before I give you what IDAM exactly is, let me give you an example here. Suppose you want to access any of the application in today's world, like whether it is Google, YouTube, whatever it is, right? What you will do, you need to have access. You have to have an ID if it is a protected resource, right? So that means you, in order to access any application, you need to create, or if you already registered there, you will access your own particular digital identity, right? So that is basically identity management. Beside your physical identity, your name and your home address, now when you are coming into online, you are coming into www, the world wide web, and you are doing anything, you have to show your digital identity in order to be present there, right? Most of the time we use our Google identity, right? The Gmail account which we create is basically, Gmail is a application, it's not the account. Basically we are creating Google account, right? So that Google account used to be our digital identity when we surf web normally, right? Whether it is your any of the e-commerce site or normal YouTube. So normally you use your Google Earth. So that's called identity, digital identity. And managing that digital identity is called identity management, right? Now talk about any of the organizations. Let's say your Indian Railway, or let's say your Indian Army, or even if you go for IT MNCs, let's say Infosys, Accenture, TCS, right? All these have like millions of employees, right? 3 lakh, 4 lakh employees, they are working for these companies, right? So in order to have their employee proper access, so that they can get salary, they can work on the project, all this stuff. People who already work for any of the companies, not considered to be IT, they don't know how the identity is being managed, right? So this is called digital identity, which need to be managed very properly, right? In upcoming slides, I'll be discussing a little bit more about how to manage digital identity, and in the boot camp classes, I'll be sharing even more inside depth by using the tool as well, how exactly it is being done. But coming back to the identity management, so whenever you need to access any application, any organization, you need to have your assets called identity. So digital identity will be created for each and every users created over there, right? So managing that, it's called identity management. Coming back to access, so now you have an identity, you have given proper access to them, right? I won't use proper term called provisioning or reconciliation, which I'll explain a little bit later, but let's talk some layman words so that everybody can understand. So when we talk about giving access, means everybody cannot access all the stuff, right? I mean, if you go to any office, right, any MNC office, so what you will see, you need to punch your card, your employee card, in order to get access to the common base, common doors, right, cafeteria or your own web. But there are some secure bay, like say data center room is there, or some managerial room is there. Even if you swipe your card, you cannot access that, right? So that's called authentication. That means system will validate, are you the authenticate person to access a particular area or particular thing or not, right? For example, you have your Gmail account with username and password. If you are not sharing your password, then nobody else can use that, right? By using your Gmail, nobody else can access to your Gmail account. That's very basic, right? You have to provide the password. So by giving the password, you are actually authenticating yourself, or in layman words, you are validating who you claims to be. That's called access management, right? It's a very basic, and every day-to-day life we are actually doing this access management, right? For example, when you do a GPay, when you are opening up your Google Pay and scanning somebody and giving money, what do? For scanning, it asks for, if it is a huge number, they what will do? You will put your fingerprint, or maybe some 4 or 5 digit PIN, right? So that's access. You have set up that PIN so that nobody else can access your GPay, Google Pay application, right? Or same happens with your phone as well. You secure your phone, right? So that nobody else can access your phone and your personal data. So what do you do that? You either put your fingerprint, or if a phone doesn't have that hardware, you put some pattern or some PIN, 4 or 5 digit pins over there, right? So that is what, by giving the PIN, you are putting a particular security on your digital identity, which is there in your phone, right? And while you are accessing your phone, you are claiming yourself that, okay, I know this, that means let me allow into the phone, else it will block. It will not allow, and after 3 or 4 attempts, it will block the phone. That is also a rule is been set, right? So that is called access management. So access management and identity management is a very, I would say, the door. It's a door. In the cybersecurity domain or cybersecurity world, it is the door for any protected application where it has to be implemented, and that's why it's not a choice. Like some organization might think, okay, I will not implement cybersecurity, or will not implement identity. That's not a case. It's like These are basic. You have to have these in order to run your organization, right? So now that I have given you a glimpse like what is identity and what is access management, now let's move forward towards a next slide when we talk about the fundamental of identity management. Now I'll give you a little bit more into identity management, right? So as I already discussed, that in order to have access in any of the application, you need to have a digital identity so that they can identify you, right? Now, every day we use so much of digital identity. We use WhatsApp, that's also have a digital identity with our phone number, right? So phone number is the primary key using which you registered into WhatsApp. Same with Facebook, same with Instagram. You use your Facebook account into Instagram, right? There is the option for the using Google account. You can get into Flipkart or this. So that's called multi-factor authentication. That's I'll come later, or even single sign-on. So that's when I discuss about access management. I'll talk about it. But now talk about the identity first, right? So there are two ways of having identity. Either you create your own identity for all of the application you access, the application which are protected, or you use a single identity for access multiple applications. Example of using single identity for multiple applications, we know it, right? We use Google account for all of the Google product. If you have a Google account, you can use your Gmail, you can access your Gmail, your what do we call Android phone, your calendar, your Google Photos, your Google Drive, your YouTube, everything you can access using your Gmail account, right? So that is called using one identity. You are creating, you are actually accessing all of their product, but you have to have an identity, right? So now identity also comes with life cycle management, right? The way human, get born, they grow up and then they die. Similarly, organization has to manage their identity properly. So when somebody register or join an organization, they will create the particular identity. That's called joiner, right? Then if there is some details of moving out. So moving out means suppose you have an Amazon account, right? Now you're subscribing for Amazon Pay or maybe Amazon Prime. So your account will have more access, more more privileges, right? Rather than a normal account. So that means your account got moved. You have a new facilities added to your account. So that's called mover. And leaver means when you're deleting your account from any application or you're leaving any organization. So there are different way of deleting as well, right? That's something I'll discuss about during boot camp. So all these phases have different sub phases and to manage the identity. If you do a little bit of mistake of any of these flow, right, you will actually jumble with the security. Because suppose for an example, somebody is actually leaving, let's say somebody worked for Infosys and they have resigned. Now he is leaving the Infosys. His last date is today, 10th of October. And after the 10th of October, the system should deactivate or disable his account, and that didn't happen. So if that didn't happen, even after leaving the company, he would have access to his company assets, company websites and internal links, right? So now he can misuse it. And suppose it misuses it, company cannot blame him because it's company's responsibility to delete his account, right? So there are litigations and contractual obligations as well. But however, then company will be in deep trouble, right? So that's one example of how all of these stages are interlinked and very much important to manage properly in order to gain secure access for a digital identity, right? Now, these all things are customizable. All these application, all these rules of managing an identity is customizable by all of the tools, the identity management tool, which I have given in upcoming slides. I'll show you that how what are the industry standard tool are there in order to manage the identity automatically, and how organization can put their own customized rule to do that. So for example, some organization wants, like, if somebody joins my company as a contractor, after 60 days his ID should automatically get deleted or deactivated, right? So its contractual obligation is like that. So you can put all these rules automatically into the system so that no human interaction is required or intervention is required. It will be taken care of by the system itself, right? I'll give you one more very example of identity management, how it is important. For example, let's say TCS, it is hiring, let's say 20,000 freshers in a particular year, right? So what do you say so if I talk about one particular user, one particular, let's say fresher, engineering fresher, when it's getting to the TCS system, it first HR will collect the PII data, like your PAN card, Aadhaar card, your address, all these personal data, right? Once HR collect this, now in order to gain access to TCS different applications, there will be application of your salary, there will be application of your email, there will be application of your leaves. Then in order to access the TCS campus, so all these things will be having different application. On a nutshell, there will be more than 500 applications which a person need to get access in. So when a new person is coming into an organization, he has to be given access to 500 different applications. How it would be possible? So is it a feasible solution that one HR will take the data from the end user, which is the employee, and then put or feed all this data one by one into all the target system? Then for provisioning or putting the data into one for one user, one particular employee might take a entire week, right? You think about it. But if you integrate identity management solution inside it, it will be done in a matter of seconds, right? So it's all automated. So that's why identity management is very much required, because these companies are hiring, there will be people who are leaving these companies like in a very huge manner. Maybe TCS is hiring 1,000 people every month, something like that, right? So who will manage all this identity? It has to be done through identity management, right? Now, as I talk about how it is managed and what is the very much important of identity management into the system, let's now talk about the access management a little bit deep, right? So now we know that in order to access any of the application, yes, we need our digital identity to be created based upon the norms given by the application itself, right? When I say application itself, so it might require that when you are, creating account for Facebook, your address is not mandatory, but your date of birth, your first name, last name, email is required. On the contrary, if you are creating an account on any of the bank, let's say HDFC Bank, for that digital account, your address is mandatory, your age is mandatory. All these things are very much mandatory because they will validate. They will not only take the data, they will validate before creating one savings account for you, right? So based upon organization or the application you're trying to access, you have to create an identity. Now what? You have an identity. How you're going to access the application, right? So let me take a very generic way. On our daily basis, because all of us use a smartphone, even if you don't have laptop or something, all of us use a smartphone, right? In the smartphone itself, we are using access management technology on every second or every minute, right? How? Because as I was saying, you are accessing your phone. That's because you are authenticating yourself, right? So that's called authentication, where you are putting your credentials. That credential might be anything. That credential might be your password, your PIN, your fingerprint, your retina scan. Anything can be your credential, right? So by putting proper credential, you're authenticating yourself against your phone operating system that yes, I am the person who should be having access to that phone, right? Similarly, if you live in a society and you are getting inside, from the main door or from the main gate, security will ask you. So if they know you, that's a different thing. Like that's also called federation. Like they have a trust, right? I mean, they have known you so many days. Like you leave here, you go out, so they will not ask you. But if some new person try to come in, or you are coming after so long where the security doesn't know you, they will stop you and they will ask your identity. Do you live here? Or what are the credentials you have? Something like that, right? So by saying your flag number or something, you are actually authenticating yourself against the security present into your gate. That yes, I am authenticated and I'm actually the person who I'm claimed to be, and I live here, so that they will allow you inside the society, right? So that is again an access management, right? So similarly, so when you talk about digital era, every application which you access, whether it is bank account, whether it is Facebook, whether it is Gmail, whether it is your school online applications, you're putting any online application forms like Gate or something, everything you have to put your credentials in order to access that. If you already have a registered account, which we call digital identity in it, right? So now getting access also can be done in different way, right? So a normal access is basically your username and password. That's what you all know, right? You put your username, whether it is email account or your phone number, and any of the password which you say. But do you think only having this email account and password would be secure enough for organization or for the hackers? It can be tracked very easily, right? When you have Trojan in your computer, they can actually take your key notes, whatever you're typing on your keypad, whether it is a phone or a laptop, right? Or suppose you have a malware into your system, they will actually get to see the network trace of all of your application or all of your URLs in layman mode, which you are actually hitting in, right? So you are hitting all the URL, and on the URL you are putting your password. That they are actually taking all the packet, and with permutation combination or with their algorithm, they are actually decrypting it. And once they are able to decrypt your packet, the data packet which you are sending through post call on the web browser, they will have your username and password. Right? What would happen now? Next time they will log in on behalf of you, and they will do forgery. They can do whatever they want, and you will be guilty, right? So password is very old fashioned. It is not at all considered as a secure way. That's the basic of security. After password, we have multi-factor authentication, which we call MFA. Multi-factor authentication is basically having multi-layer of password. If I talk about in layman words, it's basically having multiple password, right? To give a very quick example, like you have two way of authenticating yourself. For example, you have your fingerprint scanner as well as a pin given into your phone. If you succeed in both of it, then only your phone will be get unlocked. Or let's say some of your application, let's say WhatsApp or GPay, have a second layer of pin given into your phone. So you have a fingerprint scanner to access your phone, and inside the phone also you have secured those apps using, for certain reason, for privacy reason and all, you have given separate pin. So even if you are giving your phone to your friend for taking a photo or something, and he tried to get into your personal messages, he won't be able to get, because you have a second level of authentication given over there, right? So that's a very good, very handy example which we use everyday life. Similarly, it's getting a little bit complex when we talk about industry standard, right? So in industry, in the application, they use various different way of doing this multi-factor authentication. It's not only the password, they can use your device fingerprinting. Device fingerprinting is from the system you are logging into an application, whether it is your phone or laptop, they will have their physical MAC address, right? The IP addresses. They will trace that IP address and they will put into their database that from this IP somebody has accessed this application. And suppose somebody else is trying to access your application using your credential from another IP, or which is say from some other country itself, right? So system has that intelligence. There are some rules set up. They will just check. They will validate that if a person is trying to access an application from an IP which is originated from India, and within another 5 minutes, the same person is trying to access the application from an IP which is there in Australia, right? So it is not possible. A same person cannot travel from India to Australia within 5 minutes, right? So that IP validation will be there, and your device will be fingerprinted and it will be locked. So your system will be locked. And then a verification call might come in. So all this can be customized, right? Then another multi-factor is a OTP or one-time password. I don't have to say what is OTP to you guys, right? I mean, the very generic thing, everybody uses it, mostly for bank transactions, right? So if you are doing a certain level of transaction, bank will send you an OTP, and you have to put the OTP in order to succeed your transaction, which basically means that even if your password is compromised to somebody else, right, OTP will come to your personal device, whether it is Gmail, your email, or your phone, right? So that means if you're authorizing the OTP, that means it is only you. But that's not the end, right? This is the beginning. There might be that your phone also got stolen, right? So that's why sometimes now what banks are doing, they do a callback feature, right? So if after any huge transaction, they'll, to verify, they will call you to just verify, okay, is it you or somebody else had? And if what, you can actually call back and cancel the transaction so that your money would be secure. That's just one example of multi-factor authentication. There are various ways of doing this multi-factor authentication, and different tools have different technologies implemented, which will actually give you a very smooth experience for the end user. End user will not get to know that this much of layer of authentication and authorization is happening at the back end, right? But it will be done. There is one more thing which I'd like to highlight on this particular slide is about single sign-on. Single sign-on is basically you log in once and you try to access multiple applications using the same login. That is called single sign-on, right? Again, a very good example is Gmail or Google account, right? So, for example, you have logged into your Google account in one of the browser, right? And then if you access any of the Google product, whether it is YouTube application or your Gmail or your Google Drive, Google Photos, Calendar, everything you will see, you don't have to put your credential again. You don't have to log in again, right? It will take all of your data from your first login itself. That is called single sign-on. Single sign-on in industry has been implemented just to give a very smooth experience to the user, right? So for example, you're walking and you have to log in, say, see, Google is just an example for the people who work in IT. They know, like, they might need to access, let's say, 10 number of applications in a span of 15 minutes. So if they need to put all the credential for all these 10 applications, it's just not a very pleasant experience for the end user, right? So we have to, it's not only about securing, we need to make sure that user is also comfortable using the product, right? Otherwise they will not use it much, right? So that's why single sign-on is just for that, right? I mean, it is secure, obviously. It's not that if you have logged into your Google account and you're trying to access Facebook, you will be able to access it. No, because Facebook and Google are two different organizations, and they have your data, but in a different database, right? They are not sharing data in between. There is another way called federation, where they will share the data, but only when you allow, right? For example, a federation is basically you are logging into your Flipkart account using your Google account, right? Somebody must have done that, right? So that's called federation, right? When you are trusting somebody with your own account. So in that time, what would happen? Flipkart will not check your credential, like your birth date or address, because it will rely on Google. Because you are using your Google account, Flipkart will have a federation call. They will say, okay, well, you must have done these validations for this user. I'll rely on you and I'll allow this user to log into my system using your account. That is called federation. So there is a difference called single sign-on and federation. During my bootcamp classes, because this is kind of a very vast topic, this is just a glimpse, right? So when I talk about the bootcamps, when I'll be explaining this in bootcamp, you'll get to know more about what exactly federation is, how single sign-on also can be achieved using federation. That's what called CDSS, so cross-domain single sign-on or federated single sign-on, right? So these things can be achieved. You can actually use your tool. You can customize the tool using your own APIs. You can build through Java or C#, whatever language you are comfortable with, right? And you can implement it for securing your application even more. Now, I think that would conclude this slide about access management. And now, Kaushik, I think it's a poll time. You can go for a poll. Yeah.
Yes, guys, there's a quick poll question that's on your screen right now. Give about a couple of minutes. If you've used IAM tools in the past, which ones do you prefer using? If the tool that you use is not there on the screen, feel free to leave your comment in the chat. If there's any other tool that you guys have used which is not there on the list. Cool. Thanks, Joy. Thanks, Raghavendra. Okay, yep, psychotic is kind of becoming pretty prominent these days in the market. Yes. Right, just last 45 seconds. Anybody who is still wanting to cast their votes? Last 10 seconds. All right. So yes, I think I've shared the result with you guys, and Bishwajeet, I think majority of them are choosing Oracle and CyberArk. Of these ones, which ones are your favorite ones? I mean, you can share with our participants as well, or preferred one rather.
Yeah, it's nice to know that people are aware of these names, which is really good. And obviously, I would go with Oracle and CyberArk because these are the two which I have worked upon and I have certified with. So yeah. But obviously, apart from Oracle, we have SailPoint and ForgeRock also leading the industry from front. Like, so it's not like we can say that this is the best in every aspect. We cannot say that because there are certain scenarios where Oracle is the best. nobody can matches that level of security of Oracle. But there are certain certain scenarios of implementation of cybersecurity where SailPoint or CyberArk are the leader in their field, right? Their Oracle cannot compete them. So based upon, so you have to have knowledge on most of these tools, right? So that when you are into consultancy, so in the beginner time, it's fine. You get your hands-on knowledge as much as you can. But when you are into consultancy, when you are or into advisory, right? When you sit with client and you will actually propose solution, cybersecurity solution for that client, right? So there you have to have knowledge on all these tools so that you can actually decide based upon cost effectiveness, based upon the requirement which client is asking for at the moment, and you can suggest kind of, okay, go for this tool which is best fitted for your application, your requirement at the moment. Yeah, but nice to see that people are actually knowing these tools name. Great. All right. Let me
guys, whoever have questions, you can start putting your questions in the chat. We'll start picking up towards the end of the session. Yes, Bishwajeet, I'm sorry, you said something?
No, I think let me share back my screen.
Sure.
Is it visible?
Not yet.
Just a sec.
Yep, it is now.
All right. All right. So now I was talking about or giving you some generic examples like how this cybersecurity is important and playing key role for all organizations, right? So now I have tried to put in some of the very important cyber attacks which took place early in this year, right? And I will also talk about some forum where you can get very regular updates about this happening into cybersecurity world, right? So one which you see is April 21, where one of the malicious Android app have been caught, right? So that's basically that app was scanning all of your fingerprinted and all of the data at your Android device, and it was from the backdoor. So they call it the backdoor channel, or basically it's the reverse proxy IP, right? Which they were using to send all of your data from your phone to the black web, basically to the hacker. And if they gain access to your data, they can do whatever they want to do, and they, by any means, right? So you don't have any control, right? So that way, it was being found out, and I think Google has given a bug bounty to the person who actually resolved this or found this bug, not resolved, found this particular bug. I have provided the link as well. If you have more interest in it, you can go to the link and read more. Similar thing happened on there's an organization called Purple Fox, which is, I believe, it's basically a medical, I would say, pharmaceutical company, right? So basically, when we talk about pharmaceutical, they even have very crucial data about user health, right? So if you have a certain disease, you will not, want that information to be shared by everybody, right? Like if somebody, I'm just saying, if somebody have some blood disease, right? And if everybody, like Facebook, you showcase your photo, right? So in some photo is also one of your attribute of your digital identity. Similarly, your name, similarly your health status, right? So with the Facebook name, if somebody shows their health status, like this person has this disease, it's just not good, right? I mean, nobody wants to do that, right? So similarly, if any of the pharmaceutical data get exploited or somebody gets into it, they will have access to the health of all of their users. And among that user, it might be the prime minister of our country, or might be some high officials, right? Or some movie stars as well. So that has to be secure very usefully. And some it I think happened in Latin America, and there were 30,000 devices which has been rescanned in order to get out of this particular attack, right? So similarly, if you want to know more about these kind of happening, which is which is going all around the world, and how cybersecurity experts are actually mitigating that risk, whether as a proactive manner or as a reactive manner. So when we talk about securing application, it always has to be proactive, because if you are going for reactive manner, it's basically it's done. I mean, a hacker has gained your access and they have done whatever they wanted to do. I mean, they already done the damage. Now you're reacting. That means you are actually making sure that okay, they will not do the same again. But anyway, they are not going to do the same with the same way. They will use some different tactics or different technologies to do the next time. So you always have to be proactive in order to secure your application, and that is the reason the applications are spending millions of dollars just to secure their application. It's like kind of win-win situation, because security is the topmost priority. If you are having a client and if they will have millions of dollars of security bond, right? I mean, if your data has been breached, your client data has been breached, you might be knowing that whenever you are getting into a project or joining any company, IT company, you have to sign so many NOC documents, right? So those documents actually make sure of that if you breach any of these policy or data, you have to put penalty. And trust me, the penalty used to be huge. I mean, if a single data breach been happen, and it is been because all this company use third party auditing, right? Third party auditing is done by top notch big four company like PwC, Deloitte, KPMG. All these people does that, and if they found guilty, they have to put penalty of millions of dollars, right? And they can be blacklisted from the market. There will be huge reputational loss, everything, right? So securing digital identity or digital data is very much important, as I already said, and that's why all of the whether it is a big organization or somehow middle organization, everybody is spending huge amount of money in the cybersecurity domain, and that's why people who are into the cybersecurity domain, walking into it, and they are expert into it, they have a very good way of their professional life. Their career is in safe hands, right? Moving forward to talking about these events, right? So where you can get this event? So if you basically go to Gartner Summit, there is one of the commits. So you just go to Google, type Gartner. You can register for free. By free you can register there, and you will get email notification of all these summits, cybersecurity summit across the world, all this hacking related news and all. It will be very useful. Like, it will give you more interest if you are new to cybersecurity, that how vulnerable our data is onto the digital market. Now moving forward, I think Kaushik, you need to take over.
Sure. Yep, sure. So yeah, guys, I think for people who've already been here for the master classes, we do run a master class, which usually runs for 12 weeks. And it contains different topics, starting from introduction to network security to 9 other topics that we kind of deal with throughout the span of 12 weeks. All of our classes are live classes. They just run thrice a week, and you'll be given pre-reads before the class so that you don't feel lost. At the same time, every class is followed by a project, and that is graded by industry experts like Bishwajeet and others. So these are some of the topics that is covered during our course. So we start off with the introduction to cybersecurity, wherein we teach you about virtualization environment and Kali operating system. Then we jump into network security, wherein we teach you about Wireshark and Nmap and Metasploit. Then we jump into cyber attacks. We've included a new module called reverse engineering of malware, which is there. We also do web application security with Burp Suite and Zap, and also Metasploit is involved over there as well. We also do incident management, life cycles, and some of the use case studies that is there in the industry today. In addition, we also do digital forensics, GRC, identity and access management as a topic, which is going to be headed by Bishwajeet himself, and they'll be discussing case studies with CyberArk and SailPoint and Oracle, and much more about single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, so on and so forth. In addition to that, we also do cloud security, and one of our important modules is our SIAM QRadar module. We do it as also a part of our 12 weeks program. We're running a limited edition offer right now, so we're doing 59,999 with upfront payment, and if you don't get paid after the terms and conditions, we refund the money back to you. Else, you can pay after placement with an initial payment, upfront payment of 29,999, and once you get a job, it's 15% of the CTC for the rest of the first year or year and a half. So quickly go ahead and do check out our program. I've shared the link on the chat window and I'm doing it again. So do head to this link immediately. This is Bishwajeet's link and you will definitely get some sort of a discount because we are ramping up our batches right now. We have our batch currently starting on the 10th, which is tomorrow. We have another batch which is starting out next month. So every month there's a batch coming out. So I urge you guys to quickly look into the link and get this course done, as it's not one of those courses which is done by teachers, but it's more of done by industry professionals. They're going to make our life much more easier because they've been there, done that, and they're building a path for us to walk in. So yeah, thank you so much, Bishwajeet, for that. You can take over. And guys, please head towards the link and check out the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaushik, for the details about the courses. Let me share back my screen.
Sure. And guys, just to add to it, we also offer placement assistance as well. So, yeah.
All right. Okay, so now that we have discussed about cybersecurity, importance of it for any organization and today's digital world, and then we talk about identity and access management, importance of it, how we can implement a nutshell on about it, right, and how we are actually using it on daily basis, right. Now let's talk about a few of the important tools, like the very industry leader tools using which we actually implement this identity and access management, right, very easily. So one of the top-notch tool is basically, as you see the logos on the right hand, right? We have Oracle. So Oracle has been into the system for about 2 decades now, and it's one of the most pioneer and old, industry tool for identity and access management. Oracle tools called OAAM, Oracle Identity Manager, Oracle Access Manager, Oracle Adaptive Access Manager. Then for directory structure, like secure directory, you have OID, Oracle Internet Directory, Oracle Virtual Directory, Oracle Unified Directory. All these products are there from Oracle. Then the other very important tool, and which is actually leading the industry nowadays, is called SailPoint, because it's very lightweight, and integrating SailPoint with cloud or some other applications are quite easy compared to Oracle, because Oracle is a heavy suite application, right? So SailPoint is also very well-known tool used by so many millions of users base. Then we have CA. CA is a company which basically known for their CA's SiteMinder or CA APM tool, but they also have security IDAM tools called CA Identity Manager and CA Access Manager. Then we have CyberArk. CyberArk is one of the industry standard and kind of a monopoly for one specific thing called privileged access management. So when we talk about when I discuss these things in bootcamp, I'll give you more glimpse about what privileged access management is and how it is different than normal access management. However, coming back to CyberArk, so CyberArk is basically one of the best, and it's #1 in privileged access management for quite a year now. It's more than a decade. It's leading that, right? So CyberArk is very important. Tools from CyberArk called PIM and PAM. PIM stands for Privileged Identity Manager, and PAM stands for Privileged Access Manager. Then we go ahead with ForgeRock. So ForgeRock is kind of an open source, which is created by the people who have actually developed Oracle itself. It's kind of a new product. And in ForgeRock, it is too lightweight that integration would be so easy. ForgeRock tools called ForgeRock AAM and ForgeRock IDM, which we call OpenAM and OpenIDM. AM stands for Access Manager. IDM is for Identity Manager. Then IBM also has some tools, IBM Tivoli Access Manager and Tivoli Identity Manager, right? So though now IBM is kind of old legacy tool, people doesn't prefer to use IBM anymore. Like there are few use cases of it, but yeah, not more. So these are the very well-known and industry leader identity and access management tool which is being used. And just to let you know that if we want to use this on a license basis, a single person will not afford it, right? Because license for these product comes a huge. I mean, if I talk about Oracle, on an average, if you are using Oracle Identity Manager and that to you for like, let's say one instance itself, one single managed server, your license for entire year will come around somewhat 1 million or 1.5 million, which will be in I think almost near to 10 lakhs, right? Or even more than that. But one single instance will not serve you. Like if you have an organization, let's say for 10,000 users, you have to have multiple managed servers, right? So your license cost itself comes around 25 to 30 lakh per year, right? So that means these tools are being used by every organization where that's why they are spending huge money for securing their application, right? And when they put this money, so these tools are capable of securing it. So if something which happens, Oracle or SailPoint will take the responsibility, right? After even securing and buying their product, it's like buyback. Like if still you are facing some hacking or something, whatever penalty you want to charge, you can actually charge to this company and they will pay you, right? So that's how business works. Now, if I talk about what are the certification parts, so let's talk about a little bit of certifications over here. So yes, certifications are very important when you talk about cybersecurity, like any other domain or any other technology. But I would also like to say that if you want to grow and if you want to have a very good paid check of your from your employer, it's always not mandatory that you have to have a certification, right? It is good to have it, but the main thing which you need is a hands-on experience, a working experience, right? If you are appearing for an interview, for example, I also take interview on behalf of Infosys at the moment, and the way I evaluate people, it might happen that if suppose you are some of you are from Indian access management and you're trying to applying for Infosys, it might happen that I will be the interviewer for you, right? Because there is a huge drive going on, but I normally do not take right away that if the person is having a certification, that means I'll give privilege to that person. No, not like that. Certification obviously it matters because you know the technology, you have spent time to learn it, and then you have earned the certification. So it will obviously give you a privilege. But it doesn't mean that if you have a certification, you are qualified for every job. No. Good interviewer will always evaluate your hands-on knowledge. And on the contrary, suppose you don't have a certification at the moment, but you have a very good hands-on knowledge. You know the flow, you know how this is work, right? If you satisfy with your fundamental knowledge of the tools and the technology, you can get a very good job, right? So that's how it is looked for. So my motto to you guys would be: do not just go, just read like the way we normally people do in Indian education system. They just read for passing their examination. Do not go in that way. Read more stuff, get a certification, and then you think that you are done, you will get an awesome job. It might not happen, right? You have to learn the technology, and in order to learn that, you have to work upon it, right? Talk about different costs. So yeah, certification is a little bit costly compared to other domain over here. If you're going for Oracle Identity or Access Management certification, standalone certification will cost you around, I think, 200 or 250 US dollar, which is basically 13,000 or 14,000 with tax. It will come around 15,000. SailPoint have different level of certification. If you are going for beginner like developer or integrator, it will cost you around 500, I believe, which will be again like 25 to 30,000. If you are going for some advanced level of architect level of certification, it will cost you around 1 lakh or something in Indian rupees. Talk about CyberArk. Yes, CyberArk, if you go for beginner, right? What we call Sentry or something. There are different stages: Sentry, Trusty, Guardian, all this stuff. So Trusty, Sentry will cost you around again 80,000 to 1 lakh, something like that. The certification itself costs like that. If you go for Guardian certification will cost you, I think, near about 1.5 to 2 lakh, right? With taxes and all, right? So these are costly certification, but most of the time what happens is, suppose you have proven your credentials to your organization that you are capable of doing this and you are actually doing this particular tool. So company will bear the cost, right? You will take the examination with your manager approval, and if you pass the examination, the entire cost will be bear by your employer itself. Most of the employer does that. You don't have to worry about, right? So, but yeah, if you don't pass the examination, then you have to bear the cost. It's there. So all of my certification which I have done for CyberArk or even Oracle or even SailPoint, I did that way. I have get an approval from my manager. I did that, and when I passed it, I get all the money refunded, or what we call reimbursed from my company. So that way you can also do, right? Now talk about, so I think the last point I have already given a glimpse that if certification is mandatory or the only way to get a job, right? Because everybody knows that cybersecurity jobs are very high profile job compared to other technologies. So there is, I'm not demeaning any technology. Every technology has its own importance. But when we talk about cybersecurity, yes, it is one of the most important field, right? So that's why there's a huge job market of it. If you are a cybersecurity professional, you will be in demand when you are switching job or you are looking for a job. But certification is important, but not the only criteria, right? The main thing we should focus upon learning the technology. I think, yeah, that's what about this slide. I think there will be a quiz which Kaushik will take over.
Yes, guys, there's a quiz right now. The quiz is to identify the wrong sentence or the statement. So just go through the statements and check which one is the wrong one. You have to identify the wrong sentence, bear in mind, not the right answer. And that's almost the end of the session, guys. So once you start having questions, start putting them to the chat. We're almost at the end of the session too. We'll just pick up 2 or 3 questions. Bishwajeet, while they answer this, I think there's one of the questions from here who is from Ashwath. He's like, what should I learn to stand out in a resume to get a job in IAM? Everybody is training in SailPoint. I want to know what is more needed to stand out from other applicants.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, Ashwath, I would like to say, suppose there are 10 people giving, putting SailPoint in their resume, and you being the 11th, there's a high chance that you will get a job, because SailPoint is such a technology that, there's a huge demand of it. And when we talk about standing out from others, so it's not about the technology which you are choosing, is basically how deep you know it, right? So as I was talking about, let's say 10 people have given SailPoint in the resume. It's not necessary that 10 people will know the SailPoint properly, right? So when there will be a proper evaluation done, might be 2 out of 10 will be proper knowing. So 8 will be rejected. So among that 2, if you are 1, you will get the job, right? So SailPoint, obviously a very good thing. If you are looking for a cybersecurity job and willing to learn something, you can start with SailPoint. There's no harm in it, and you don't have to worry about the race condition, because if you know SailPoint properly, you will get a job very easily. If you feel that SailPoint is not very much cup of your tea, so then you can move towards CyberArk or Oracle as well, right? But because I have experience in all of these, I must say that Oracle technology are much more complex to learn than SailPoint, right? You might be a very good learner. So within a year or 6 months of time span, if you do rigorous hands-on working and studying of SailPoint, you might get some knowledge. But for Oracle, you need to spend at least a year in order to get, because it's having old legacy complex APIs, right? So you can go ahead with SailPoint. I would suggest, if you are willing to pursue your career in cybersecurity, just make sure you know it properly, how you are learning it.
All right. Thanks, Bishwajeet. And I think 50%, close to 50% of the people have answered the right answer. So the answer for this is the last one, wherein IAM roles are defined according to the ability of an individual user to perform specific tasks. That is the wrong answer. People who answered it, yes, you guys are correct. Also, any other questions before we can call it a session, guys? So now is the time if you want to bring up any questions. And also, please feel free to leave your feedback for today's class as well. And yes, the recording will be available in the AntWak portal. It will be, okay. Yeah, Mahira. So Joy, I have a question, Bishwajeet. Is CISSP certificate relevant for IAM?
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, Mahira, just wait. We just answer Joy's question and then I'll get you to ask your question, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, Bishwajeet, please.
Yeah, so the question about CISSP certification?
Yes, so
right.
Joy has a question asking, is CISSP certificate relevant for IAM?
Yeah, so CISSP is an industry standard cybersecurity professional certification, and that's basically relevant to all of the cybersecurity domain. It's not only IAM. If you are a network engineer, if you are network security, vulnerability management, everything you're relevant with. But just to let you know, CISSP is not something for beginners, right? Even you are not eligible if you are learning cybersecurity for say like 1 year or 2 years. I think 5 years or 6 years is the minimum criteria you should be into the cybersecurity practice before you apply for CISSP. And when you actually pass that CISSP exam, you are considered that you have basic fundamental knowledge of all of these paradigms in cybersecurity, so that you can be considered as an advisor or a solution architect, right? You might be, very much fond or very much expert in one of the field, but in order to have CISSP certification, you should be knowing all other field at least some up to an extent, right? So yes, CISSP is very, very important, I would say step in cybersecurity domain. But if you are a beginner and trying or looking forward to CISSP, no, this is not for you, right? You spend at least 5 years in cybersecurity domain and then try for CISSP. But if you are an, you already have 10, 15 years of, or let's say close to 10 years of industry experience, and now you're moving to cybersecurity or something, then you can try learning CISSP portals and those material and try to get certified in it. Yep.
All right. Yeah, Mahira, go ahead.
Okay, sir, can you show the second slide?
Second slide. Okay. Is
Yes.
my slide still in place? Let me see. You mean fundamental of identity management you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Is my screen is shared? I think no.
Yep, it's visible.
It is shared. Oh, great. Yeah.
Their question.
Okay. So in the cybersecurity, what is the identification of management fundamental?
Can you rephrase your question?
Yeah,
you
it's
talk
a bit
about the
confusing.
project management fundamentals.
Yes,
Are you meaning
yes.
here?
Yes.
Okay, so management is something, Mahira, it comes with everywhere, right? I mean, if you have people to manage, if you have project to manage, if you have deliverables in terms of sprint or agile framework, you need to have management capabilities, right? But just to let you know that there are two ways everywhere. When we call core technical guy, when we call managerial guy, right? If you are from IT, you must be knowing that there is some manager or lead sitting into for every project, who are managing the leads, who are managing the team and the deliverable, but they are not actually doing the hands-on work of the system. That's the developer who are doing the task, right? So cybersecurity and management, those are parallel things. They cannot be clubbed together. Cybersecurity is a technical domain, right? Management is another domain, right? Where it is required for managing any project. Even if it is cybersecurity project, you have to have a manager to do that, right? But that manager might not need a cybersecurity skill, proper cybersecurity skill to manage that project, because managing the project will go with the project management skill set, right? So if you are into management, again, if you are into management, you might not need a proper cybersecurity skill in order to manage a project. On the contrary, a cybersecurity manager might get a cybersecurity project to manage, but it's not mandatory that he will do the manager. He might get his hands into the technical, because technical people will do technical work, managerial people will do managerial work, right? So shifting does in that way. It's not like you learn management and then you come into cybersecurity to implement that management. It's not like that, right? I hope I answer your question.
Okay, so just tell me, if it is I'm learning cybersecurity, if somebody hacks my site, so which tool I use to unhack my site?
Okay.
That question is irrelevant to this session. And you can search the internet for that, because there is no one tool that one can suggest, and there is nothing called unhack. All you can do is you can detect what caused your hack and you can protect yourself in the future. Once you get hacked, there is no way to get unhacked.
No, if I hire some hacker person to unhack my website so that I can start my business.
That's what I'm saying. That's not called unhacking. That's finding out the infection or the malware which is causing the hack and then eliminating it. And you can protect and safeguard yourself. Bishwajeet, back me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, Kaushik. So I'll give you a very good example here, Mahira. So suppose your phone have a pin or a password, right? And somebody knows it and they hacks into your phone. How will you unhack that? Like, he already knows your data. Now he can use it based upon his own convenience, but you cannot Cannot ask that guy, no, you forget my password. You can, so that's called unhacking. You cannot do that. Unhacking sounds like redoing. You paint something on Microsoft Paint or write something on Microsoft Word. You put Control Z and it will go out, right? So that's called unhacked terminology. Looks like that, but that doesn't happen in cybersecurity. Once it has been hacked, hacker will do whatever they want within a fraction of second, right? You cannot get it back. The maximum which you can do that get into the hacker. Suppose your purse got stolen, you can actually caught the thief, but catching the thief, it doesn't mean that your purse has never been stolen, right? It is been stolen, and your credentials and your money might be used by the thief, right? So there is no term called unhack. It's basically secure your application against hacking. Is it clear now?
Yes, sir. It's totally clear. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Any other questions? Bishwajeet, thank you so much for coming back to our platform time and again. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. And yes, guys, do check out the link that I've shared in the chat window. We are kind of ramping up our cybersecurity batches with some discounts, so quickly head on the link. Thank you so much for your time. For people who have joined in late, the recordings will be available. For people who have any queries with certifications, you guys will be receiving your certificates in the next 2 to 3 days with the email address that was used to register for this event. Once again, thank you so much for attending the session. Thank you so much, Bishwajeet. It's always a pleasure to have you on board with AntWak. I look forward to future collaborations. Yeah.
Same feeling here, Kaushik. Thanks everyone for your interest, and wish you all the best for your cybersecurity journey. Thank you.